Hi everyone, welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Andy and thank you for clicking on this video and wanting to hang out with me today, because today is all about Mr. Stephen King, as you've seen in the title. So about 2 months ago, I think, I did a video talking about how I decided to read all of Stephen King's books, at least his fiction work, and so like his novels and short stories. And yeah, it's been 2 months, it's been a while, but I think I mentioned in the video that I wanted to do like little check-ins now and then. So like every 2 books that I read, I'll be doing like a video like this where I'm just gonna share a little bit of my thoughts, my impressions, if I liked the story, what I liked, what maybe I didn't like. So yeah, that is what this is about. This is the first installment of the series, I guess. I don't really know how I'm gonna call it yet. So today we'll be talking about, like I said, 2 books, and those are Misery and The Dead Zone. They were in the little list that I gave on that video. I'm gonna put it in the cards somewhere if you want to check it out, where I explain like how I got to know Stephen King and my relationship with like his stories and everything. So yeah, enough rambling, let's go. Okay, I want to start by saying that these little reviews that I'll be doing, I'm not gonna be like spoiling anything. I know a lot of these books, at least the older ones, are like pretty known. A lot of people kind of already know because like what happens in the plot because of the movies, the adaptations and whatnot, but still I don't want to give like spoilers, so I'll be trying my best not to do that, but still talking about the things that I liked and like what was my impression of the story and the writing and everything. So just a little disclaimer about that. Let's start with Misery. So to give a little brief synopsis, I just took this from the internet. So the novel's narrative is based on the relationship of its 2 main characters, the romance novelist Paul Sheldon and his deranged, self-proclaimed #1 fan, Annie Wilkes. I think that's how you say it. It's Annie Wilkes, right? That's how you pronounce it? If I'm saying it wrong, please correct me. I have to start by saying that I absolutely loved Misery. I loved it so much. I couldn't put it down. By the way, if I keep looking at my side here, it's because I wrote the notes, the things that I wanted to say. Otherwise, I'll be just rambling and I'm not gonna remember anything. So yeah. So I couldn't put it down. I was like just going through the pages like so fast. I just wanted to know what the hell like happens with these characters. I was so immersed in the story. So that's the first like positive, I guess, point for Misery, is that it really like sucks you in the story and what's happening, the plot, everything. So yeah, I really couldn't put it down. For me, Misery, in terms of like horror, it really fits into the psychological horror, which it is, I would say, my favorite type of horror. Honestly, not only in books, but especially in movies. I am a sucker for a psychological horror. I just love it, to like analyze everything and like try to imagine like, oh, what would I do in this situation? You know what I mean? So this to me, it's more of a psychological horror because you really feel the tension building moments in the story, and I think that's one of the things that makes you not want to put it down, which is incredible. And obviously that just shows, you know, how good the writing is. I'm sorry if you can hear noises right now. Someone just started doing some construction work. So anyways, the next thing I would love to talk about is the characterization. That is something that I always pay attention to in any story that I read. And I, again, absolutely loved it. The whole plot is built around these 2 characters, right? These 2 main characters, Paul Sheldon and Annie Wilkes. And I think Stephen King did an incredible job by building this, not just a relationship like with each other, but like showing us who they are, like gradually through the story. The analysis we have of Annie through Paul's eyes is so well written, because I don't remember now if I don't think it's first POV. I think it's like third person, but it's oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember from my literature classes. What is it called? Omniscient narrator? I don't know. It's a third person, I think, narration, but it's that narrator that knows everything. There's a name for that in literature, like a specific term, but I'm totally blanking on it right now. But anyways, the way he writes Annie through Paul's like point of view, I just thought it was really, really well written. And I love that her characterization, it's given to us pieces by pieces. So it's not like, oh, here it is, this is who she is at just one point of the story. No, we gradually, like through Paul's like analysis and like observation of her as a person, we start to like build the pieces of like who she is. Like, oh, this is her backstory, or like, oh, this is probably why she does this, or like, oh, she's kind of dangerous, oh, she's kind of like deranged, as I said at the beginning. So yeah, that was just really well written, and I loved that. Also, the way we see Paul's mind slowly crumbling, it's sad, obviously, it's really sad because of the situation that he's in, but also so well constructed. So yeah, I need to give King props for that too. I just really loved it. There were many moments of uneasiness in this story. There's a specific moment that literally made my stomach turn. The only other time that I can remember that happening to me, where I read something in the book and like I had to like stop and take a deep breath and like close the book for a second, breathe, and then come back and read the rest, was with the Underground Railroad. I'm looking at right now because I'm using my books as a what is it called? As a thing to hold my phone. I forgot the name of that. By Colson Whitehead, because that book, it's very heavy, and there were some moments in there that I was reading and then I had to like stop and take a breath, and I was like, wow, this is okay, let me take a second. And there's a specific moment here. I wish I could say which one is it, but maybe if you're a big fan of the story, you know it's something like kind of like very physical that happens to Paul. And I was like, wow, the way it was written, I was like, okay, let me close it. Okay, let me stop imagining that and let me go back to the story and finish it. So another thing that I want to talk about is the story within a story. So I think that was a really nice touch, and I'm starting to think that that's a Stephen King thing, because like he loves to put writers in his stories, and the writers, like the characters, are writing a book or whatever they're writing, and we get to read what they're writing as well. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but it's basically like a story within a story. And the reason I say that I'm starting to think that that's a Stephen King thing, it's because I'm currently reading Billy Summers, and he does that in that story as well. So I had realized before, and even his short stories, that he loves to put writers in, like as his characters. I imagine that must be hard. Like you're writing a book and then you have to worry about your characters and the plot, but then you make your character a writer, and now you have to write his story as well, because you decided to also, put that in the book so your readers can also experience that story. So it's just more work for yourself, but he worked perfectly. I loved that. It was a really nice touch in the story. So now, with all of that said, to me, what really stands out in this book is the psychological aspect. Like I said, it's a psychological horror and everything, but that's what really made an impact on me, I guess, when I was reading, because we see this character go through hell, really, or should I say misery? Wink, wink. That was so bad. I'm sorry. But we see him going through all of this, and we see, like I said, his mind, like what happens to someone's mind when they go through something like this, through a, like, what is it called, captivity situation. I think, again, King, I think he wrote that like really, really well. There's moments in the book where you might think at first, like, oh, because, you know, Paul is, I don't think this is a spoiler, but he's like, he suffers an accident, so he's really like not doing well, like physically. He's really, really hurt. He's in a lot of pain. That also influences in the way he thinks, the way he's acting. There are moments in the story where you might think like, oh, she's not home, like maybe you should try to break the window or do something. And then he doesn't. And maybe at first you might think like, oh, come on, Paul, like react, do something. But then you realize, and King does that really well, he shows that through the book, how it's not that easy. Like when you're in a situation like that, it really messes up with your mind. It really does. And like I said, it was really sad to see his mind slowly crumbling. But through, like, from a writing perspective, props to King, because I think he did that so perfectly. So the whole psychological aspect of everything in this book was really what stood out to me. And I just loved it. And yeah, I was not disappointed with the end. I couldn't wait to get to see what would happen to these characters. Was not disappointed. So I gave 5 stars, which for me is not always, I don't always do that. But yeah, to me, Misery was a 5-star read. So there we go. Okay, so the next one is The Dead Zone. This one, I have it right here with me. I did read Misery in a physical copy too. It's just that it's not here with me currently because it's not mine, it's my sister's. Again, a brief synopsis. The story follows Johnny Smith, who awakens from a coma of nearly 5 years and, apparently as a result of brain damage, now experiences clairvoyant and precognitive visions triggered by touch. Really interesting premise here. Okay, so The Dead Zone. I gotta start, I guess, in the same way that I started talking about Misery. Could not put it down. I couldn't put it down. I was just like, what is happening? First thing I like to mention is that I got attached to Johnny so quickly as a character. He's just a really likable character. He really is. And I feel like when you really like a character, when you're like, I don't know, you just get attached to them, that makes you want to read like even faster and just like get to know what's gonna happen. Another thing that caught my attention in this book that's a bit different from Misery is the different POVs, the different point of views. To me, that kept the story more interesting, at least in the way that King did it here. Because sometimes that can get a bit, I guess, confusing or messy, but not with Mr. King, come on. So we have Johnny. He is the main character, and he narrates, again, I think it's well, now I can look at it. Yeah, it's a third person, but again, that narrator that knows everything, knows what everybody's thinking. I swear I know the name of it, I just forgot. But anyways, so it is in third person, but Johnny is the one who's telling us the story throughout most of the book. But then I think like halfway through, we get this different POV from a character that we don't know. Like, we don't know his name, we don't know who he is. We just get a different character. And we're like, what is happening? Who is this person? And that was so cool for me. That was a surprise while I was reading. So I really liked the different POVs, also because we find out who it is at the end, and then like everything is really wrapped up together like perfectly. So I had to mention that as well. There's a moment, so like I said, like in the summary, Johnny has this little ability of his that he struggles with a lot throughout the whole story. right? It's very conflicting to him because if you think about it, like this basically when he touches people, he gets to like know things about them, little details of their lives, but also sometimes he gets like glimpses into the future. And think about it, man, like that is like a burden in many ways, but in other ways it could be also really helpful, right? If you see, I don't know, someone's gonna get hurt, someone's at a catastrophe or whatever, like you get into that mindset of like, oh, can I do something? Can I even do anything? Should I trust what I'm seeing? At the beginning, he kind of like doesn't really know if what he's seeing is really real, like what's going on. But there's a moment in the story that I really liked where we have to see, and this is not necessarily a spoiler, is it? No, I don't think it is. Where we have to see Johnny use his ability to help in this like police case. And I loved it. It was so cool because it almost felt like we were reading a like crime book, like a crime solving book, like where our character has to like figure it out who did it, and then they have to go after the killer and everything. So I really liked that story. It was really that story, that little plot point that caught my attention to. It just made everything more interesting. And that is a moment as well, one of the big moments in the book where we see Johnny's conflict with like his ability, and like he feels a bit of, I don't know, he has a little sense of like responsibility, like I need to do this, I need to help, basically. Another thing that I really liked was that it was really cool to see a little bit of the 70s here, because this book came out in 1979, so you know it's been a while. I wasn't there, so it was cool to see a little bit of the 70s through the story. The characters, the settings, everything. I have to say, though, that it was a little confusing at times with some of the political references, because there were a lot of like political references to that point in time. Not only because of the time, because it was the 70s, but mostly because it's like American politics for me, you know, a non-American person reading it. There are a lot of things that were mentioned that like, yeah, I've heard of it and like I'm kind of aware of it, but not really. There were moments where I wanted to like research a name or something and stop, but I didn't want to put the book down. So yeah, sometimes it was a little confusing. I have noticed that King likes to make a lot of references to what's happening at the time in his story. So like here was the 70s. Now in Billy Summers too has been doing that. And it's, even though sometimes as someone who doesn't know the background for that or doesn't necessarily understand the references right away, I love when books make me feel like, oh, I don't know about this, let me go and research, you know? Obviously you don't want that to be happening every 2 sentences, but that's not what I felt with the Dead Zone at all. So it's just to say that, yeah, sometimes it was a bit confusing, but I don't see that as like a letdown or a negative or anything like that. I actually like to learn things that I don't know about. So that was really cool too. The final pages of this book left me at the edge of my seat at first, and then left me crying. I cried at the end. If you haven't read the story and you don't know anything about it, just a warning. Okay, so for this book, right, what stands out to me is this huge moral question, is the question of morality. There's a moment in the story where Johnny is faced with this huge moral question. It happens after he meets and touches, like accidentally, this upcoming politician, and he sees something like catastrophic. This is not a spoiler, by the way. If you read the summary in the actual book, it says that. But this moment, it's like the biggest moment in the story, because like throughout the story, it's sprinkled out through the plot, these moments where he has to question himself, like, do I even do something about what I saw? Am I really helping, or am I just making things worse? You know, he really, really struggles with this ability that he had after he woke up from his coma. But this is like the biggest moment in the story where he gets this like huge moral question and he doesn't know what he should do because he sees something catastrophic and he doesn't know if he should intervene or not. This to me is like what stands out from the whole book, is this moral conflict of like, if you had an ability like that, how would you feel? Like, would you always tend to it and like intervene? Is that even ethical? Is it ethical to just stop and not do anything? How do you measure what is big enough for you to intervene? What can you intervene with and what you cannot? So I really liked that. Again, it's kind of like a psychological thing, but more of like in terms of morality this time around. Yeah, it's this question of like, is it right to do something wrong to avoid something even worse? It's the big old question. Do the means justify the ends? You know? So that's what like stood out to me about this book. Overall, an amazing story as well. I was really lucky that I read Misery and then this one right after it. Yeah, The Dead Zone to me was also a 5 stars read. So the 2 Stephen King books I've read this year were all 5 stars. So I feel like I'm doing pretty good. It's going really well. This Stephen King journey is going really well. So yes, guys, this was my little review, my little like first installment of the series here on my channel. Thank you for watching all of my rambling, if you have up to this point. If you did, and if you want to keep following me on this journey, you can subscribe, like the video, that helps me a lot, and let me know in the comments too, like what is your favorite Stephen King book? What did you think about these stories if you've read them? What was your ranking, if you even have a ranking for your books? If you want to check out the other videos that I have on this channel, I also talk about language learning, so if that's something that interests you, check them out as well. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.